What's up guys, today I'm going to be showing you the process for how I made this model here. As you can see, it's basically just one of my characters and she's sitting in a sort of, I guess you could say like a pond thing with roses, leaves, and branches. And I hope you're going to learn a lot, so let's get into it. So obviously, as usual, the first step is going to be to actually sculpt the whole body. Everyone has their different way of doing this, but basically I just like to adjust things into shape, add a cylinder for the neck, and add a UV sphere for the ears. And from there I'm basically able to get the main proportions of the head blocked out. And I then proceed to add the details of the face, like the nose and the eyes and the mouth. Now the thing about this is it's good because you really only have to do it once. And then after you make a model, or a base mesh I should say, once you're done making the whole model once, you can basically reuse it for future projects and stuff like that as well. But of course it does take practice to get to the point where you can make a good base mesh. But anyways, the point is here I'm just going to keep on sculpting the face until I think it looks good and proportionally correct. You don't want to make something that's insanely high quality because we're going to retopologize over it anyways, and most of the detail is going to be coming in the texturing phase anyways. The reality is, in this style of modeling, you're not going to really know whether or not it looks beautiful or not until after you do the texturing. Even if it looks good while you're sculpting it, it doesn't really matter because once you add like the hair and the rest of the parts of the body, that's when you actually get to see if it looks good or not. But anyways, what I'm doing here now is I'm using the skin modifier to basically make a base mesh for the rest of the body excluding the head. You can see my modifier stack on the right for how I use the skin modifier. It's really not a complicated modifier to understand at all, so if you're unfamiliar with it, I recommend just look up like skin modifier blender tutorial on YouTube. It shouldn't take like that long at all to learn. But yeah, it's nothing crazy, you just want to position all the body parts into place. Once you're done with the skin modifier, you want to apply all three of these modifiers on the right, which is then going to give us just the mesh version, right? Where we can actually manipulate everything and sculpt over it. So as you can see now, I've started the sculpting process, and also you can use edit mode as well, like I am here, to hide certain things and just move things around with proportional editing a bit easier. But yeah, the point is now is to sculpt everything into place and make it look great. So I'm focusing on like the feet, the chest, the hands, all parts of the body. And I eventually fuse it with the head as well, so that we have everything put together. And I fuse using the Boolean modifier, using the union option on the Boolean modifier, which is another like really easy modifier to use. So just to tell you guys a little bit more about the Boolean modifier, pretend that this is the head that we sculpted and this is the body. All you do is you just bring one near the other, add a modifier, type in Boolean, switch it to union, and you set the object to be the other object. So if this was the head, then this would be the body. And then you control A to apply the Boolean modifier with union. And then you'll have this excess model, just get rid of it. And so yeah, that's basically how I fuse the head and the body together. I just place the head on top of the neck area of the body sculpt that we made, and then I Boolean it together. Anyways, over here I started the retopology process, and I always like to start with the lips on the face, and from there I basically do the rest of the face and then span out to the rest of the body. Then, using the free Rigify add-on that comes with Blender, I place my bones into place and then basically just auto-generate the rig, which you can then select your body, then shift select the armature object that was created, and then hit Ctrl P with automatic weights to skin the armature to the mesh. Then after doing all of that, you can hit Ctrl Tab to go into pose mode on your armature object, and you'll be able to actually move around things. The next step is to start doing the texture painting. So basically for the eyeball object, which is just a UV sphere that I position in the eye socket, I'm going to add an RGB node and set it to white. And also that's exactly what I did for the body as well. I set it to a beige color using the RGB node. Over here I added a curve for the top eyelash, and so that lets us start to get a more realistic look. Before we go any further, I just want to show you how the image textures work. Basically, if you create a new image texture, all I'm doing is I'm dragging out to a mix node, setting the image texture to the FAC, and then basically whatever you put as the B value can be the color that you are drawing in. So yeah, using this exact process, I just keep on adding like redness to the face, darkness to the face, and all those things that you need to make a face that looks proper. By the way, watching this, you guys may be interested in a more detailed walkthrough that goes more step by step. And that's exactly what I do over on ukiyogirls.io. This is a full series of lessons where you'll become amazing at creating high quality Ukiyo-inspired models. From sculpting to high quality shader creation and texturing using the layered method, to rigging, I'll go over every step of the process in detail, regardless of your skill level. I'll show you how to make not only this 3D portrait from scratch here, but I'll also show you how to make this rigged character from scratch, including the spicy version of the body. And in addition to all of that, you'll get access to my koi pond and sunflower animation series, which will really further improve your skill in making beautiful Ukiyo-inspired models and animations from scratch. There's a few other goodies you'll get upon joining, so make sure to check out all information on ukiyogirls.io. I continue to add more eyelashes to the face in order to make it look better. I also add more redness and whatever else I need to make it look good. As you can see here, I left a dark space for the eyebrows earlier that I'm now filling in with smaller strokes to indicate the hair over there. But anyways, after that's done, I want to start to add the hair. So I'm going to add a path curve and scale that down a bit. And one other thing I want to add is a curved circle. What we can do is we can use this curved circle as the profile for the path curve that we made. So as you can see here, if I scale down certain points and basically just make it thinner, then it's going to use that side profile as the profile for the path curve that we made if we switch it from round to object in the bevel settings. One other thing I want to do is create a scalp object by just selecting all the vertices of the head around just like whatever area you want, and basically I set it to a darker color. I hit Shift D, P by selection, and then I switch its material. So I then create a hair material and assign it to the scalp object. Basically it's just going to be a dark red color, and it's going to save us a lot of headache because once we're placing our path curves for the hair, we're already going to have a significant patch of the head that's already in that dark red hair color that we're using, so that it's not such a burden to place curves literally everywhere. We already have like some of it done. So yeah, my advice here is probably to just know what type of style you're going for so that you don't get confused while you're placing your curves. You want to know what exactly the type of hairstyle you're trying to make is and be confident when you place the curves. But yeah, once you're done with the curves, you can convert them into a mesh, and then from there you can use your grab brush to move things around. But anyways, after you're done with the hair and the face and all that, I wanted to actually pose my character, so I went into pose mode on the rig and started to put it into place based on the pose that I wanted. So obviously you should try and take pictures of the pose that you want, because that way you'll be able to make an accurate thing. The next step after posing our character is actually pretty simple. What we want to do is we want to model these roses and leaves and basically just duplicate them around everywhere. But before I show you how to do that, there's one other thing I need to show you, which is these water objects in the scene. Basically, if I hide and unhide them, you can basically see what the difference with or without them is. And so I'm going to show you basically what my approach is to making these water objects. If I go into solid view mode and zoom out, as you can see, we have these few planes that are right here, and these are all just the water objects. When you look at them closer, all they are these planes that I just subdivided a lot and then duplicated down and down more. The reason I kept on duplicating them down is because if I go to the shader editor, the shader for these water objects is actually extremely simple, but very effective at making a sort of like transparent water. The way it works is we just have a diffuse BSDF and just like a basic toon shader here with a blue greenish color that I then run through a hue saturation value node just to like have any, corrections if we want to change the color easily like that, or the value. And I use a mix shader here with a transparent BSDF so that we can slide how transparent we want this water to be. And if you layer these planes on top of each other, that means when you look at it from the top, like we are with the character, they stack, right? And so you can duplicate these leaves here and these roses to be at different levels in the water. So as you can see, these leaves, like this one right here, is high up. It's above all the water objects, so you can see it very clearly. But these down here are below the water objects, so they're harder to see. And they're more, I guess, like washed out, you could say, by those water planes. So yeah, that's basically how I made the water. You can adjust its transparency easily. The reason I subdivided them so much is because if you look here at our model, there are certain areas in the water that I wanted to kind of like raise up just for stylistic purposes. Like here, for example, around the hair, I wanted it to engulf it a little more, so I raised the water up here. And yeah, obviously the way you do that is you just hit GZ with proportional editing enabled and just raise it up just like that. And that'll basically allow you to make certain parts affected by water and certain parts not affected by water. Additionally, regarding the hair, I also added some more curves down here. As you can see, these are just pure curves that I didn't convert to mesh. And I already showed you how to add hair curves. It's easy. You just use the path curve object. So that's exactly what I did here, was if I move this away, as you can see, we have our regular hair object over there that I did like manipulate a bit in edit mode after posing. But yeah, the reason I added these extra hair objects over here was because it makes it look a bit more realistic, like it's actually flowing in the water, if that makes sense. One more thing is regarding the clothing. This is also very, very easy to do. The way I did it was I went into edit mode on our model, and I already applied the subdivision surface modifier, so as you can see, the geometry is very dense. But so let's say we wanted to add like some sort of like sock or legging here. What I would have done is I would have basically just selected some vertices along whatever area we want it to. Then I would have hit Shift D, right click, hit P by selection, and now this becomes its own object. So if we go into edit mode with tab and I select everything, if I hit Alt S, we can make it a bit thicker. And then regarding the material, obviously you can do whatever you want here pretty much. Obviously you'd have to get rid of the skin material. If we add a new one, we can make it whatever color we want, right? So like black. And I've already showed you in this video how you can use image textures to further draw detail on it. Like as you can see on the pants here, or the skirt, I added some of these, I guess you could say like these triangular shapes down here using drawing with texture painting. That's basically how I did all my clothing. Obviously after you're done duplicating it, you can manipulate it around as you want and just make it into like whatever shape you like. So that's basically my approach to doing clothing, is you duplicate it from the original body mesh, change the material, and then you can just, once it's its own object, you can just do whatever you want and go crazy. So yeah, that's how I made all the clothing for her. So for these leaves that you see all around the scene, it's actually very simple to make something like this. What I did was basically I just added a mesh and then I scaled this down, and basically I hit Control 2 on my keyboard. Let me go to the Properties tab now. And basically what I did was I added the subdivision surface modifier, which allows it to become very circular, I guess you could say, very subdivided. And then what I did from there was I applied that modifier, and as you can see we have all these vertices here now that we can move around. So using proportional editing, I just moved this whole part on the y-axis and this whole part too. Maybe you want to select an edge loop in the center and position it up like this. And yeah, so that's basically how I made my leaves. Literally nothing difficult at all. You can add another subdivision surface modifier if you want with Control 1 again to make it even smoother. In the shaders tab, if I go here, what I did was I just made a really simple shader for it. So basically the way it works is if I shift a RGB, we can basically make this whatever color we want. And I'm going to shift click this node so that it views it. And yeah, so basically you can set it to whatever leaf color you want. I use like a nature type of greenish color. In order to add the veins that go across the leaf, what I did was I just unwrapped this from top view. So if I hit 7 on my numpad, we can look at this leaf. Since it's a completely flat object, we don't need to do any complex unwrapping. So I just hit U and then project from view to get a very simple unwrap. As you can see in the UV editing tab, we have it here. And I'm just going to scale it up so that it fits the entire size of the unwrapping space. And from there, what that's going to allow us to do, now that this model is unwrapped, we can just add an image texture with Shift A. And if we add a new, not open, hit new, and basically call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it like leaf tutorial, and we're going to keep it as black, and you just want to hit OK. What you can then do is if you drag out a mix node, you can basically plug this into the FAC. Now what's going to happen is basically wherever you draw on this mask is going to appear as whatever color you have in the B slot. And so basically, yeah, as you can see now, we can just play around in texture paint mode and basically just give it whatever texturization that we want. You could use like a dark green color here so that it looks more realistic, and then just draw your veins, you know. Obviously not these like scribbles that I drew, but you get the point. And then to add the outline, this is the thing I do for all my models. It's called the solidify outline. You probably know about it already, but if you don't, you just add a solidify modifier. And make sure if it's a flat model like this leaf, you actually have to add 2 solidify modifiers. So add one first, add another, and the second one is going to be for our outline. So there's a specific way for doing this. You set offset to 1, uncheck fill, go down to the normals tab, hit flip. In materials, hit -100. And then basically if you go down to the materials tab over here, hit plus, and then click this arrow icon to go up a level. And basically now whatever you have here in this upper level, it's going to be the outline color. So if we go back to the shader editor, if I hit new, and I just add another RGB node. Oh, and by the way, for your solidify material that we're trying to make here, you have to set it to backface culling. And so as you can see now, we can actually make an outline really easily. Obviously now, if you go here, you can adjust the strength and everything. So yeah, that's basically how I made my leaves. Nothing difficult at all over there. Regarding these roses, the process was like very similar to the leaf, except the modeling was a lot different. If I hide these modifiers here so you can just see what it looks like completely just in model form, it's basically just a series of these interlocking planes that I curved around a lot. So if you want a quick demonstration of how that would work, basically if you add a plane and subdivide it like we did for the leaf as well, maybe subdivide it like twice. What you can do after you apply the subdivision surface modifier is take like 2 sides and just kind of like raise them a bit. What I did was I think I rotated this a bit, and basically I selected both sides as I was telling you, and I kind of like curved them in a bit like this. So just like that, I was able to make this sort of, I guess you could say, concave looking shape. So I had like one shape that was like this, duplicated it, and then I hit Control M and I reflected it over the x-axis so that we can now have these two shapes that are reflected amongst each other. What I did was I selected like a group of vertices just like this, and I hit E to extrude them out, and I just angled them down a bit, and then I hit Control R to add a loop cut in between, hit Alt S, and now we have this nice sort of like angled down shape that, as you can see, I have on all these here. So yeah, that's basically my process for making the rose. So as you can see here, I have one shape, one concave shape that's like right here in the center. And then I have some other ones like right here that are interlocking over each other. So basically now to go over the shader for this rose, it's very simple as well. Literally I just have an RGB node here that we then plug into a hue saturation value. You don't have to have this one obviously, but it's just in case you want to make any changes to the value or saturation. And then I added a gradient texture here, a sphere, that basically is centered in the center of the rose. So that from there, what I did was made it so that it becomes darker a bit and more saturated in the center as compared to the outsides, which gave it a nice look. So obviously if you look here, we have a gradient. White areas are for the A values, dark areas are for the B values. So naturally, if we're trying to make it darker in the center, then we should be looking at what the white values are doing. And the B section is for the white values. So for this hue saturation value node, I increase the saturation and decrease the value, because this is the one that affects the white areas in the gradient, because we plugged in this gradient to the FAC over here. So yeah, if I shift click this, you'll see it looks like that. I also added this last node here. Basically what it is it's this object that lets you move around the light pretty much, and it's really cool. I go more in depth into that on ukiyogirls.io, so check out that if you want to learn more about that. But yeah, now moving on to the branches. These are extremely simple objects here. I'm not even going to go into local view on them. Pretty much all it is I'm going to demonstrate it for you right now how I made it. You hit Shift A, go to Curve, Path, and now if you have your path object, I'm just going to move it up a bit with GZ. We can basically go over to the Properties tab once again over here. And my UI is a bit messed up. I know you guys like by default have this tab here. So yeah, basically you just go to the Curves tab down here, go to Geometry, where it says Bevel, just increase this value. And now you basically have a branch that you can hit tab to go into edit mode on this curve, and you can just move the points around really easily. And that's basically just how I make all my branches. And now if we go into the shader editor once again, I'll show you quickly how the shader is made. It's nothing difficult at all. Literally all it is just a basic toon shader, which is a diffuse PSDF that I then drag out to a shader to RGB, and I then drag that out to a color ramp node. And basically I can switch this to constant, and what we have here is just the basic toon shader. So if I shift click on this node, as you can see, we have our toon shading, and I can switch this to whatever color I want it to be. If you add a sunlight to your scene and you rotate that sun around, it's actually going to affect the branches. So yeah, that's basically how I made my branches. There's nothing crazy there. Obviously the colors I used in reality were a bit darker. But anyways, yeah guys, that's basically it for making this. So yeah, thank you for watching, and once again, if you're interested in this style and want to learn more, check out ukiyogirls.io.